Now, I always wanted to open up the game days with Slovak game developer. Now, for the last few months, it was a challenge, like who will be the first opening and, let's not say it keynoting, but opening the game days. But I found someone. That guy is called Miro Straka. He was born and raised in Slovakia, but unfortunately he moved to Vienna, where, fortunately for us, he developed single-handedly amazing game that he will tell you all about it. So Miro, come on up on stage. Stage is yours.
Thank you, Pavel. Okay, hi, so I'm Miro, and I'm going to speak in English because I was told to, but if you don't understand or have any questions, you can just ask me in Slovakian. And so this is the game that I've been working on for almost past 2 years, and it's been released in March, and Pavel asked me to tell you a little bit about the development process. So probably many of you don't actually know the game, so I'm going to play the trailer so you get the feel what's it about. There should be sound, but somehow there's not. This is a wrong sound actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, it doesn't matter. This was actually the release trailer, and I have to say I really don't like it now because I've made like 100 edits of this movie and I just can't see it anymore. And this is also something you have to be prepared for when you're developing a game by yourself, that you're just gonna be doing stuff that has nothing to do whatsoever with the game, like editing videos and cutting sound. And yeah, so you can see the game is pretty much about rotating a Rubik cube-like geometry and reconfiguring the world to fight the enemies, and moving to the next stages with more mechanics and more complicated enemies, boss fights, and yeah. So it's really not working, huh? Okay, so a little bit of background. I am actually an architectural student, or I finished the school now, but I used to be an architectural student, and you can see that already in the architectural school I was doing stuff that was not really a traditional architecture. I mean, some crazy robotic-like spaces and funky colors, and I was not always getting a lot of praise from architects who considered this a little bit too crazy for their tastes. And as I said, I started developing the video game already at school, and actually developing a video game, even if you're doing it as a single person and in your, let's say, free time, you still need a lot of money to get it going. Like, you need hardware, software costs, obviously, but also if you're going like to GDC or any kind of game festival, you need money, even if you're invited for the flight and for the hotel. So I would advise anyone who's doing the game, you probably have some marketable skills, like you're either a good 3D modeler or you can program a little bit, and I was doing the whole time as I was working on the project also a little side projects like websites and user interface designs or renderings to keep the money going and to actually have something to pay for the development. And also you see, I live in Vienna, my family is in Trnava, my wife was in Passau, and I had clients in Prague, so I was moving a lot during the development. And actually the majority of the game was developed on the train, because it was like 4 hours there, 4 hours back, and yeah, I had my laptop and developed the first prototype there. So these are the influences on the game. You can, since I'm an architect, you can obviously see an architecture, you can see a lot of like Slavic Greek mythology, some of the games that will be here today as well, and yeah, like Dungeons and Dragons, isometric characters. And this is actually the very first GIF of the game that I have ever made, and it's awful. Like, I didn't even know how to make a compression for a GIF image, and you can see there's a lot of stuff going inside there compared to the result. Like, there's some sort of image which you're assembling, and there's some fishermen and fish jumping and whatever. Because when I started developing the game, I was putting a lot of ideas inside, but this is really bad practice, and you should not do it. You should just focus on the core mechanic that's there, because otherwise there's just going to be a lot of unfinished stuff, and the stuff that's really important will remain unfinished. And this was actually after 1 month of development, and here is a screenshot comparison with 1 month of development and after almost 2 years of development. You can see that this is the first level I designed, and it stayed in the final game, and not that much actually changed in terms of level design or visuals. You can see this is how the levels were developed. So I usually draw everything on paper and have these ideas of how these worlds can interact and how you can achieve the final solution. And then I translate this into 3D space. And then I find out that actually nothing that I designed works because it's behaving completely differently. So I have to change everything and start all over again. But this is the fastest way I can prototype, and sometimes it worked. This is another comparison. Oh, shit, there's a wrong slide, I guess. You can see this was the second level, and this is again the final image. And now we're going to make an analysis of what actually changed in here and what remained the same. Yeah, so you can see in terms of graphic elements, I designed the character as the very first thing I did, like within the first month, and I actually didn't change it, because if I would do like normal character prototyping or character development, I would just not have time to finish it in, I don't know, half a year. So I just took whatever was working and I left it there. The only thing that I changed was the cape, because it enables me to locate the player even when he's on the backside. So the user always knows where the player is. The other thing that I changed was the marker. It's like when there was the circle, it did not really mean a danger to a lot of people who were playtesting, and they were always stepping on it. Because it's kind of like inviting. Your player is on a circle, there's a circle, so they want to step there. So I just changed it for an X. The other thing is the flag. I actually kept the flag and just reveal it at the end as a kind of reward. And yeah, then other small user interface changes. So you can see a lot of things really stayed the same graphic-wise. And if we go back, for example, even the background image, the background gradient is the same. And this is not because it didn't change. It changed like 100 times probably. But the very first thing that I did somehow was the best in the end. So also I think it's important to trust your intuition. And when you do something in the beginning, you probably had a reason why you did it. And maybe you should leave it if it's working out. Then what I was actually working on during these 2 years was like lots of useless ideas. Like for example, this is one level where on the finishing of level, it somehow expands and you free these little bees or whatever it was inside. I don't even know for what reason I was actually doing it, but I spent like 2 months developing this swarm behavior, and then when it was finished, I was like, no, this is not the game, and I discarded it and I had to start over. So it's also like, I did not have a clear plan for developing this game, and I was just kind of doing whatever felt right, but this might not be the best thing to do. And if you can plan a little bit ahead, maybe you actually should. And yeah, this is another one of, like, you know, I was trying all sorts of things, like framing the game space in a circular thing, because I was probably at some exhibition which had like circular paintings or, you know, something like really things that when I'm looking back at them, they are not making sense. But on some of them, I actually spent a lot of time. Yeah, like this was probably the longest thing I did. It's like a menu design where you select the levels. And I actually, for some reason, decided to hand paint the images for all the levels. And it's 40 levels, like that's a lot of painting. And when I was finished, I'm looking at it and like, I can't tell what level is this, because there's no like, you know, user plays level with 3 cubes and then there's some sort of image, but he has no idea when he wants to reselect that level. So I, again, discarded everything. And yeah, like you see, it's a lot of paintings that I produced for this. And this is how the menu looks in the end, you know? It's just screenshots of the levels, because this is, functional-wise, this is the best what you can do, because you immediately tell the user that this is the level that he's selecting and not some random painting that was there before. So, you know, like, during this 1.5 years, let's say that I was developing the core game, there was really a lot of things that I didn't have to do, and if I knew better, I could probably fit it into 6 to 8 months. And what's next? Yeah, so as you saw, I had all these paintings already prepared, so I wanted to take advantage of it, and instead of just putting it somewhere where it didn't make sense, I made like small animated movies that are a reward after you defeat boss of each chapter, which didn't take that much time since everything was prepared. But again, no one cares. It's like 5 people out of 100 even notice this when they are playing the game, because they don't want to see art, they want to see a game, and this is just an art. So most of them just tap to skip it. And the 5 are like, yeah, this is super pretty, but you know, it's not part of the game. So again, I think it's really important when you're doing game alone to just skip the stuff that you don't need or that's not like really the hardcore center of your game. And yeah, this was the stuff that took the most to develop, and this is the stuff that I am really glad that I reworked over and over and over and over, because this is an input module. So if you take a mobile puzzlers, you usually have like rotation on 1 axis, but I have a rotation on 3 axes, and I have a rotation of the entire world on 1 more axis. So it's like, it's actually a lot of complicated user interaction for a casual player. And the thing was, I had the very first stuff designed in like a month, but it was just never it. When you have something like this and the player finds out in the first level, he doesn't know how to control it, or it doesn't respond to him the way he wants. He just gives you like shit review and discards the game or asks for a return. So I really reworked this probably 10 times from scratch, maybe more, to get everything perfect. This is actually one of the glitches that I recorded. I don't even know how it actually happened, and yeah. This is the screenshot of Unity. Probably most of you know how Unity works if you did something with the games. So you can see that this is the game window of what actually will be in the end in the game. And what's interesting here in this scene is that there are no lights. So this was technically very important part of the game, because when I had lights there in the beginning, I wanted like directional lighting, you know, like lots of low poly popular games have these days. And I had like 5 lights, and it was costing a lot of performance. So on mobile, actually, when there were bigger cubes or multiple, it was already like lagging, it was super slow. And then I decided to discard it and design like a directional shader. The problem was that back then I was really not a good programmer, and shaders were like super difficult. So yeah, this is how the shader actually works. So when you rotate something, you know, it always calculates the direction of the normal and changes to the color that you specify in the level design. And when we look from the back, there is no light. It's like, it's black there, so it's like default texture. So this is very performance saving, because there's no light calculation going on in the back of the geometry. So whatever you don't see doesn't exist. And the way this works is that I don't actually rotate the camera around when I'm rotating the world, but I decided to rotate the geometry instead. This was very early on, this decision, and it was one of the worst decisions I could have made, because then you have like objects which has like complex transformation and rotation in itself, and then you rotate it, like rotate the parent of the object, and then when you want like moving enemies who teleport or whatever, you have to do lots of calculations of quaternions and rotations, and it's something that I really regretted a lot, because in the beginning it made my life easier, and in the end it made it hell. And this is how I actually developed the shader. So as I said, I was not really good at this, and I was doing the game alone, and I didn't really know any people in the game industry, so I didn't have anyone to ask. But I had some sort of idea of how this shader should work. And at some point I was just like, yeah, whatever, let's just ask at Unity forums. And I asked, and some random dude like Golus or whatever, he responded the next day, and he really helped me and guided me through the entire process. And this was important more than once in the development process, because I cannot possibly know everything. So I just went online and asked random people, and they are really good. Well, like, this is what Unity is great for, because people at forums are really active and they really want to help you and help you succeed. So also if you're doing a game and you don't know something, just ask someone and they will probably respond. This is how I solved the movement. So this was also something I saved a lot of time on, because I'm not a good animator or a rigger, or like I probably could do it, but it would take me a lot of time. But I still wanted my little characters to have some sort of life or feeling. So I just put like a dynamic cloth in Unity, which responds to the movement of the character. And when he, when he moves, it's little like, and when you rotate, the cape goes with it. And on the display size, on like iPad, the character is like 1 centimeter or something. So you don't actually see that he doesn't have an idle animation or that he doesn't actually walk. But you see this great dynamic response that you're getting, and it feels really good. So instead of spending like 6 months doing animations for all the types of soldiers that I have, I just put cloth on all of them, and yeah, it worked really good. And this was another one of the not so great decisions that stayed there until the release, and that I'm very glad it didn't backfire in bad reviews, but it could have been so very easily. So you see what's happening here. This is a boss fight. And what's happening in the boss fight is he takes the control of the rotations. So he is the one rotating the cube. So you are locked out. You can only move. So you see, I first make a move. Yeah, I try to rotate. I cannot. So I move forward. Move forward. Come on. Yeah. Then he actually rotated it, and I'm locked out. I cannot rotate. So I can only move forward, and he kills me. And this is like, I felt it's a good idea to somehow spice up the gameplay and to give you rewarding boss fights. But what it really was extremely difficult for the users. Because for most of the players, it would be enough if I just designed graphically slightly different character, call it a boss, let them defeat it, and they would be happy. But instead, I took away the control of the user, and this is something that they don't like. Like, they want to be in control, they want to know what's happening, and and you need to let them to do this. So actually, I was getting reviews like, this is a great game, but then I got to the level 16 and the game crashed. And I was like, how did it crash? Because it wasn't crashing. And he was like, suddenly I couldn't control the world anymore. And he really thought this is a game-breaking bug and not a feature. And actually, most of the players didn't get past level 24, which was a really difficult boss fight. So again, I could have saved like 2 months of developing the boss mechanic if I just didn't do it. But I didn't know it back then. So hopefully it maybe helps someone. And this is so how the game actually became a game. When I started developing, I was just putting it on the Tumblr as every experiment that I was doing, and suddenly there was some guy, and he came and asked me about the game. And obviously you like talking about your game because it's flattering, although it was not a game at that point. And then he was like, yeah, could I write a small article? And I was like, sure, I don't care. And actually it turned out the guy was from Pocket Gamer. And he also told me to at least set up a Twitter if I don't have anything. So you can see, like, I had a Tumblr page and a Twitter, and I didn't even have a web page. And what's worst, I didn't actually have a name for the game. And also check the dates. I zoomed it out. So Euclidean Lands is expected to release early in 2016. And this was sometime in December, I guess, November. And I felt really good about, like, I had everything designed, you know, what could go wrong. Of course I'm going to release it in 3 months from now. No way. Like, no. It took more than 1 year and 3 months more since this date to actually release it. And as I said, I did not have a name for this game. And what I did the night before the article was supposed to come out, I just went on Reddit, and there are these like subreddits where you talk about games in development. I was like, hey guys, I have this game, and I'm not sure if it's a game, but I really need a name. And this is again great, like this is, the gamers community is very supportive, and people just went online, and I got like hundreds of names for video game. And you can see this Bronxta dude is one who suggested Euclidean Lands, and it's the one I picked in the end. So yeah, again, like don't be shy to just ask people for help. They really like it, and they want to be involved, and they want to help you. Oh, and what's also funny, you can see that the game is still named New Unity Project, even at this date, because, yeah, as I said, this was not a serious project when I started it until that article came out. Oh, and one more important thing here is when this came out, also like Touch Arcade and a couple of other newsletters took the article, and it was in 2015, right? So everybody knew about the game in 2015, and it was on one side very good because I got a lot of contacts and invite to like Unite or whatever. But on the other hand, when the release date came, no newspaper wanted to write about this, and this was a huge problem because everyone was like, "Yeah, dude, it's a great game, but we already heard about it. This is not the news anymore. We don't want to write about it." So when release date came, it was really troublesome to get some good press because everybody already knew about the game. So if you have any sorts of contact in the gaming industry, don't do press release before actual release date for these kind of small games, because there's not enough content to keep people interested for that long. And this was around the same time. This was a retweet made by Us2 Games. I think they will be here tomorrow. And it was like second day I started Twitter. I had like, I don't know, 10 followers, and suddenly they retweeted one of the GIFs, and yeah, you see it has like 33,000 of impressions. It was huge. It was about the same time that the articles came out, and I just came home and I had like full inbox of people sending me mails, of notifications, and of everything. But again, this was a pure luck that the dude on Pocket Gamer noticed the game on Tumblr, that Us2 Games retweeted it when they did. And if these things would not happen, I don't know if it actually even would be a game. So again, like, I think developing a game is very risky and might not work out for, not even for what would be your fault, but for just for something that could have happened and did not. And yeah, since I started getting like a press and whatever, I was also invited to like Unite and GDC and lots of these like game dev conferences where I presented the game. And if you have an opportunity to go to something like this, it's really good, because especially if you don't really have a team, if you don't have the testers, if you don't have anyone, this is like one of the first time you're gonna see someone else than your friends actually playing the game and actually interacting with it. And I think these were the moments which shaped the features of the game very, very much. And also, this is really embarrassing, but I did not actually have a business card until, I don't know, like 3 months before the release. And this is a guy from Square Enix who came to my table, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, this is a great game. Give me your card. We can get in touch." And I was like, "But I don't have a card." And he was really shocked. And then I, just wrote it in my mail on paper. And he was so shocked that I just tear out a piece of paper that he actually posted it on Twitter, like, "This is the worst business card I have ever seen." But then again, even a bad marketing is a marketing, I guess, so worked out. And this is my publisher. They are really great, and when the first media attention and the first tweets come, you're gonna get a lot of emails from publishers or from like a wannabe publishers. And some of the deals are really bad. Like, I can't tell you much about it because of most of the NDAs, but some people will take away your IP, will take away your rights, will take away your creative decisions, and leave you like 50% of the profits or whatever. You have to be really careful here not to go for someone who's not offering a good deal, because there are people who will offer you a good deal eventually. And how it happened for me, I was about to sign a deal with Noodle Cake. Maybe you know them. They made like Auto Adventure or whatever. And they are actually really good guys, but they are in Canada. And I was also a little bit like, how I never saw them, and I don't know Canadian law and whatever. And then when we finally reached an agreement and I was about to sign, I received an email from like Kunabi Brother. They made the Black game like, I don't know, 3 years ago, actually, quite back, and they received like Apple Design Award, and it was in Tate Gallery, and really famous game. And by chance, they are also in Vienna. So he sent me an email if I want to go for beers, and I was like, sure. And then at the end of the meeting, he asked me if I would consider him for a publishing. They are not actually a publisher, or maybe they are now, I don't know. But back then they were not, and he actually said, like, "I'm from Vienna, it's a cool game, maybe we could do something together." And I was really not sure about signing with them, but in the end I decided for them instead of like Noodle Cake. Also because of the proximity, like I could actually meet them face to face. and it was a really good decision. They made me a really good deal, and they have lots of collections, and yeah, so that was enough of the advertisement, I guess, but if you are looking for a publisher, they are really good. And this is at the GDC in San Francisco. This was, I think, a week before the release date. And this is like, I don't know, 10, 12 meter screen. And when I came in, there was like the footage of my game playing with, I don't know, thousands of people there. And it was just amazing. And this was like Unity invited me over. And this was the last time I presented the game. As I said, it was a week before a release date, but I was not sure of anything at that point because we had some trouble with the build, some trouble with the trailer. We did not actually know if Apple people liked the game or whatever, and we received some intel to postpone the release date to Saturday. Like usually you release on Thursday because you get new features updated on iOS Store on Thursday. But we were told maybe it would be better to release it on Saturday, and I was like, fuck, like what's happening? You know, why they don't want the game? Like, what's wrong? And actually, the release date came when I was flying back from San Francisco to Vienna. And so the game released while I was on the plane. And when I came, it was already decided whether or not it is a successful game. And I was super nervous on that flight. But yeah, as it turned out, they wanted to postpone it because they had this promotion of indie games going on. And when you opened App Store in most of the countries on the world on the release date, you saw like the main feature and the main banner was Euclidean Lands. And that was really great feeling because I actually did not know if the game will do well or if it will actually do anything at all. But yeah, luckily it did. And I think that's, yeah. Also, this was a very nice moment because no one in Vienna really, I mean, some people knew that I'm making a game, but then on the release week, this is like Subway in Vienna has these large screens, and there was like Austrian developer, I'm not Austrian, I'm Slovakian, released this game, and it's a really good game, and you should play it. And I also didn't know that it's there, but that's the day that everyone in Vienna found out that I was making a game, and it's a really good feeling, I can tell you, to see so many people play and know about the game. And I think that concludes this talk. I hope I'm on time. And now it's time for questions, if anyone got one. This is my email. If you want to know anything technical or whatever, you can just ask. Because I was told not to make this too technical, since there might not be so many people interested in that. Okay, thank you.
So if you have any questions, you can ask Miro right now. We have still time for questions. Raise your hand, I will pass the mic. Yes.
Okay, this might not be too much about the development, but I wanted to ask about the marketing. You said you started making the game with little to zero budget. Did you spend some money yourself on it, or didn't the publisher take care of that, and in what way?
So I spent my money in the very beginning, and by the time I actually signed the publisher, they offered me like advance money, and some good publishers will do this for you to cover your expenses. But it was already a point where I was finished with school, and I accepted also a really good job, so it was past the point where I actually needed the money. So if you know someone and you can sign it quickly, it's really good. But yeah, but it's also like I didn't really spend anything on marketing except for like human resources and time. I didn't buy any ads or whatever because it just does not work for paid games. It would probably work for free to play, but not for this.
Anyone else? Don't be shy. Yes.
Hi. I'd like to ask if you are designing a new game after all of this, your first game. Do you have
Well, I'm doing
plans?
something. I don't know if it's a game or whatever, but yeah. I'm also designing some new levels for this, maybe to release as an update or maybe as a Euclidean Lands number 2, I don't know yet. But I'm definitely doing something.
And are you considering to do it in a team or alone again?
Well, if it's a new game, it's totally better to do it with a team, since now I know some people and I can actually assemble a team. If I'm making like new levels for this, there's no sense to make a team into it because I know all the process and right now it's so messy that the new people would need like 2 months to just get into it, like what I was doing.
Okay, thank you.
All right, maybe one more question to wrap it up. No? All right, Miro, thank you very much for your presentation.